Now, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for feral druids and, well, everybody who's interested in news, really, over the last 24 hours. And like Blizzard owed us an explanation of what they was doing, I owe you one, because the video I put on last night was out of date within about an hour, and I actually changed the title to reflect that, saying something like, well, this aged well, or something like that, I don't know. Now, this video, we're just going to look at this blue post where Blizzard are talking about future mage changes, future warrior changes. I'm hoping Hunter's in there as well, but I'll touch on that a little bit just in a moment. And also what their sort of thought process was when they was going through these feral druid changes. Now, this video is going to be pretty rough, as in there's probably not going to be barely any editing at all, because for any of you that watch me on stream or talk to me on Discord or whatever, you know, today I'm going to get my dog's hip replacement done. So he's got double hip dysplasia, and he's only a 9-month-old puppy. I say puppy, he's a sort of medium-sized Labrador now, but yeah, pretty bad, and he's going to be away from us for a couple of days, so I've got no time to edit. I just need to literally just get this read through. We'll have a little sort of discussion about it in between, get it slapped together and get it banged on, so you're up to date, and I've not got too much to do, because, yeah, about 20 minutes, I'm out the door. So let's get cracking and have a look. So Blizzard has shared some developer insight on the recent changes and reverted changes to feral druids in WOTLK the Lich King Classic. Additionally, Blizzard mentions that they've begun experimenting with adjustments to ignite and deep wound munching. So this is the bit about the mages and warriors I was talking about, but there's also piercing shots, which I believe for hunters is doing exactly the same thing, so maybe that can be tied in as well. So basically what they've said is, I think it's fair to ask for some clarification on these adjustments, and we think this whole situation deserves a bit of a post-mortem as well. So I'll bite, I like the pun, and do my best to provide as much insight as I can here. I don't know how satisfying this will be, but I'll do my best. So what happened? Essentially, the original Druid adjustments last week were merely meant to de-emphasize the bear weaving playstyle. Now, I think we knew it was going to do more than that. There's de-emphasising the playstyle, and then there's giving Omen of Clarity a 100% chance to proc Fairy Fire, 100% chance to proc Omen of Clarity. I think we pretty much knew that that was going to be quite a substantial DPS increase. Anyway, so what they was trying to do was smooth out the Feral Druid rotation as our original post highlights. They're not going to rehash all of that here, but the original logic was simply that bear weaving is unintuitive, which I absolutely agree with, has an impact on how your raid behaves, and is simply not something that would have been permitted to persist had it been widely used in original Wrath of the Lich King. And that's absolutely true as well, and I think that's actually something we forget. That's actually a really good point, and one that I don't really even think about too often. When we see these weird things like, well, I don't know, solo tanking Algalon, where advanced target dummies can be used to soak phase punches and whatnot. If that was being used in original Wrath of the Lich King, when every sort of mini patch or hotfix patch was being pushed out to change things, some of the things we do today just would not have been allowed to even happen back in original Wrath of the Lich King. And if they did, they happened on such a small scale. Whereas now we've got so many people streaming all the time. As soon as one person sees how to do something a bit cheesy, everybody's doing that little thing a little bit cheesy. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of it stays in. You know, some of it obviously gets taken out. We see these bugs get fixed, or, you know, these cheese strats for different bosses get fixed very quick. But there's others that just stay in, that just wouldn't have been in back in original Wrath. So yeah, really, really good point. I like that. While increasing or decreasing damage wasn't the main goal per se, we knew it would impact damage, likely dramatically for lesser skilled players in particular. For the most part, this was fairly successful, particularly for the average feral player who did not bear weave before. However, it's safe to say we definitely underestimated the level of the buff that this would be for top-end players, and the net effect was that this ended up being a much larger buff across all skill levels than we intended. And I think that's quite clear to see. See, I still don't think, and I've looked at logs, and I actually watched Grifting put a video out looking at each boss. Don't get me wrong, I had looked at that myself at pretty much about 5 minutes before he posted the video, but go check that out anyway. And he was looking at, you know, we're not top on anything. I say we, I'm not even a feral main anymore, I'm a paladin, what am I saying? But I'm not, you're not top, you're not top. You know, the best you are on each fight is like second. You know, on some bosses where it's really melee friendly, you're second. So it's not like they've been buffed through the roof. Someone has to be top DPS. Why can't it be feral? That's, you know, that's my main issue with all of this, where it's like, oh, feral need nerfing. You know, they've gone from bottom to top. So what? There has to be something at the top. Why can't it be feral? It's one of the more complex rotations, one of the more difficult classes to play and play well. So why shouldn't that be rewarded? Why should it be Unholy DKs? Why should it be Affliction Warlocks? So whilst I understand it was a big jump a really big jump from like bottom end of the meters right up into sort of the top 2, top 3. Someone's got to be there. Looking at it over the next several days, our team considered several options and decided that the change with the fewest moving parts is an adjustment to the naturalist talent. All told, adjusting the damage increase from these talents from 10% to 5% would have decreased the top end's player output from the 6 to 12% damage increase on most bosses to around half that increase, which felt better than reverting the original change entirely. You don't have to revert the original change entirely. I mean, I did actually say, like, this should have been tested on the PTR, which it does actually go on to talk about, which is great, because absolutely these sort of things should be tested on the PTR. But just play with the original change. As I said in the other video, instead of 100% chance to proc Omen, a 50% chance to proc Omen, even 75. So yes, it happens more often than not, but it makes it a less predictable rotation as well, which I like. I like RNG, little gamble rotations, if you like. As many players quickly pointed out, this adjustment has much further reaching impact than just a PvE nerf, of course, particularly in PvP. This, of course, runs directly counter to one of the goals we called out last week for our first set of changes, so we relatively quickly reverted the naturalist change this evening, which leads us to where we are now. So going forward, what are they going to do? Having had some time to reflect on all of this, I think there's a few key lessons we can learn here and apply to any future adjustments we feel we need to make. So put these kinds of changes or adjustments on the PTR first, period. PTR allows us to measure twice and cut once, and we should have used this tool to help us better evaluate both changes. I feel like they might have watched my video. Secondly, communicate intent better for the change of this magnitude, including follow-up adjustments. This goes hand in hand with the lesson above. They definitely watched my video. What's going on, Blizz? You've done it wrong. Because that's exactly what I said. This point too, I said, you know, when it's on the PTR, people can then have their input and we can go, oh, well, you know, we don't like it like this, we'd like it like that, this seems more fair, etc. Fairly obvious. But they carry on to say, as painful as this was, this is a good reminder as to why putting these kind of changes out for public testing before we commit to them is a good idea. Ultimately, our team are all humans and we make mistakes, or may fail to consider all angles. It's frustrating when these mistakes cause confusion or uncertainty, and frankly just isn't very classic. We can do better. But just don't continually make changes. I mean, it's great that Feral got buffed, but you're on a slippery slope. Every class is going to be crying out for one thing or another. Just accept the fact that not all classes are balanced. Fix the things that are like really, really overpowered. You know, not the fact that like Feral was underperforming. Yes, again, I love the fact that Feral got buffed, and if you're a Feral watching, you love the fact that it got buffed as well. But then if it means, oh, Feral's going to be on top for a week, and then they go, oh, what can we do with, I don't know, BM Hunters, and then BM Hunters are on top. We don't need that constant tuning. In fact, in an interview before Wrath of the Lich King, when I asked for this, I actually asked Chris Zyher and said, would you consider tuning classes on a patch-by-patch basis, keep them all fairly even? And he said no. And this looks, it's quite close to what they're doing. They're trying to bring the bottom classes up, but that's going to be constant. It's going to be a constant battle. Either start working on balancing them all, or leave them alone. Do you know what I mean? I would anyway. I'll start wrapping this up by saying that for now we don't have any further adjustments planned for Druids, but we are going to be watching the performance of Feral DPS over the coming weeks and may look into testing and getting feedback on additional refinements to our original Omen of the Clarity change. Omen of the Clarity? Just Omen of Clarity. When we stand up the patch 3.4.2 PTR to test Trial of the Crusader and other Phase 3 content. Oh, so says we're going to be watching it over the coming weeks. Weeks, not months. That's cool. Phase 3, only weeks away for PTR. Lastly, and for transparency, we wanted to let you know that we've been experimenting with some foundational adjustments to Deep Wounds and Ignite to fix the very authentic but very frustrating munching effect that causes these spells to not stack properly when two attacks that add to their magnitude land at the exact same time. This is a tricky issue to solve, as it will require completely rebuilding how these spells work, which is a risky change. Look into the lessons above. We're going to wait until we have those adjustments fully fleshed out and can get them tested carefully on a PTR before pushing out any adjustments to these spells live. Please keep an eye out for those adjustments coming to Wrath of the Lich King PTR over the coming weeks. Then they go on to thank us for our patience and stuff like that, you know, all the nice goodbyes. I mean, it's great that they've actually come out and like spoke to us and told us, you know, the intent and why it went wrong and that they're human, which absolutely, you know, mistakes happen. I'm not really bothered about that. I personally was more bothered about the fact that it just didn't even go on the PTR, or if it did, it was on there for about 30 seconds, and they were like, yeah, that'll work, let's get it on live. So yeah, a bit more thorough testing. But my philosophy with Classic has been, it is what it is. You know, they've pushed it out. If they say it's as close to a 3.3.5, you know, back in original RAF as it was, they just leave the classes alone. You know, if there's something that's really, really broken where it's just not right, then fair enough. But we've already had Ret Paladin buffs. We've now had Feral Druid buffs. We've had Unholy DKs having their, you know, Gargoyle change, which sort of brought them down a little bit. You know, what's next? By the time we get to ICC, all of these classes could have had slightly different buffs and nerfs. And what are they balancing it for? Because ultimately, once the Lich King 25 Heroic dies, either, I don't know, there's a classic RAF Forever server, or if you go onto Kata, all of this is irrelevant, literally, because all the classes change completely. If you get to the end of Wrath of the Lich King and then that's it and you quit, do you know what I mean? It's just so late. All of this, if you wanted all of this done, it should have all been done really in Phase 1, where it's just knacks and don't matter. It's starting to get too late, in my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments. Sorry if I sound really negative about it. I am. I do see it as quite a negative thing, constantly making these just, I don't know, knee-jerk reaction changes that no one asked for. So, go on the next one.